So there are some pretty shocking statistics in this New York Fed study, among which they say that black small businesses have been almost twice as likely to shutter as small businesses overall. That's due to the fact that black-owned businesses are largely in COVID hotspots. PPP, the government relief program, left some coverage gaps on that front. And then also that these black-owned businesses came into the crisis with weaker cash positions, which made them, more prone to shutting down when everything closed. So my question to you is, for the people who are investing out there, what can they do? How can they use their money to help close this gap as a public market investor if this is largely a small business related issue?
Right. I think that's a very important lens on this issue, because most people are invested in public equities, in the liquid markets. But the issues that you just described really relate to small and medium-sized businesses. So as I look at what large cap companies can do, so the companies in which we invest, I think there really are some lessons here. We've all seen the pronouncements coming out following COVID and cries for racial equality. And quite frankly, it's a bit of a hodgepodge. There's a lot of announcements that are philanthropy. There are announcements about diversity and inclusion and scholarships and a host of things. But in terms of the things that would move the needle in closing this gap for small and medium-sized businesses that are owned by African Americans, I think you really have to look for initiatives that are focused on a company's business operations. And I'll give you a few specific examples. So if you look at PayPal, they made a $530 million commitment to support African American and minority-owned businesses. They plan to work directly with community-based lenders and also to invest directly in Black and minority-led companies. And one of the things that was mentioned in the Fed study that I thought was interesting is that Black-owned businesses had a higher tendency to use online sources of capital. So I think it will be very interesting to see how some of the fintech players can really be a source of capital to undercapitalized Black-owned and small and medium-sized businesses. Another example is Facebook. Many people don't realize that Facebook primarily serves small and medium-sized businesses. Many people think about, what they do from a consumer-facing perspective, but the reality is the real customer, in terms of the companies that are buying advertising on the platform, whether it's on Facebook, Instagram, or WhatsApp, are small and medium-sized businesses. So Facebook actually announced a $100 million program that will provide grants as well as credits for advertising to small and medium-sized businesses, and 20% of that fund will actually be dedicated to businesses owned by women, minorities, and veterans. And then finally, the example that I think is really most striking is from Pershing Square Capital. This is led by Bill Ackman, obviously a very well-known investor. And he recently launched a $4 billion IPO for his special purpose acquisition company. It's called a SPAC. And instead of the usual practice, which is to allocate a very, very small of the allocation of the IPO to minority-led firms, he actually allocated 20%, which means that those firms that participated in this deal actually had an opportunity to really participate fully and to generate the fees and the revenues associated with their contributions. And he was actually quite congratulatory, because what he found was that the minority-led firms actually expanded the investor base for the IPO. And so they were able to reach segments of the investment market that some of the bulge bracket firms are not able to reach. So those are three specific examples that I think really speak to how this issue can be addressed.